So I'm gonna go ahead and use this one here. I just finished this box this morning from some cereal from Trader Joe's. And I also held on to the plastic inside. So I'm gonna see if this will work. Sometimes the plastic isn't opaque enough. We need like this frosted part so we can see through it, but also be able to see the image. If we can see right through it, if it's a clear bag, it won't work because then you're just gonna see the pinhole at the end. So we'll see if that'll work for us. And then I've just got a couple of cutting utensils and something for measuring. Oh, I probably need a pen too, so let me grab a Sharpie because we'll need that. So the basic idea for this is going to be our light tight container, right? So what we're going to be able to do eventually is just be able to hold this up and look in. And if I look through there right now, it's pretty dark. There's a few leaks, like, sometimes where this folds together is going to allow light to leak in. So we might want to like seal that up as well. And so I'm going to hold it this way so we have this dark chamber. Sometimes I'll see examples that are like this, but if we put this here, then there's so much light that's going to show up on here. It's going to be really hard to see the image. So we want to keep the idea of camera obscura, which again, we learned previously means dark box, or dark room. So we want to keep that kind of that darkness. So having this long chamber, I think is going to work the best. So what we're going to need is to actually make a incision somewhere in here that we can put our viewing surface, which will be our bag. So where we put the slit kind of matters. So if we put it too close to the front, there's going to be very little area up here. And what's going to happen is it's going to create a really wide angle lens. We'll talk about focal length in a couple of weeks a little bit more. But basically, the further back we have this, the more telephoto it's going to be, right? Or more zoomed in. If you think of like your camera and you zoom in like that, it will do the same thing with the picture. It's all about the angle that it can view. So what we're going to do is probably go at about maybe 1/3 from the front and then leave about 2/3 so we have this darkened chamber. And it also gives your eyes a little bit more distance to be able to focus as well, because if it's too close to your eyes, sometimes I know my eyes are getting bad or worse. That if it's too close, it's a little bit blurry just because I can't see that close as well. So we'll probably put it at about 1/3. So if we look here on our box, this box is just about 11 inches. So I think if we were to go, let's see if we go this direction, 3.5 to 4 would probably work. So to keep things kind of consistent, because we want a straight line, I'm just going to keep this at this front edge here, and I'm going to go ahead and do it at 4 inches. So let's do it at 4. So I'm going to mark this here, 4 inches, and then I'm going to move it over here and mark it 4. And then I'm just going to make a straight line all the way across there. Now, I'm going to cut this entire incision, and then I want it to line up on the other side as well. So I'm just going to flip it straight over, same thing. Now, I don't want to cut the box all the way into a half, right? I want to leave this part untouched, and then that way we have the kind of the structure of the box. I don't want it to be, completely separated. We will look at another version, and in that case, you will actually want to cut it all the way across, but in the cereal box, we don't. So I'm just gonna rotate this, and I'm gonna still use my straight edge. Now this is a ruler that has a metal edge here, so that works really well. If it was just wood, I probably wouldn't wanna use that because it'll actually cut into the wood, but I'll use the metal edge here. Now, I'm using a box cutter, but you could use an X-Acto knife or something else. If I had to, I could also just use the scissors. Just work with what you have. You don't have to necessarily do it exactly the way I am. Now, it'll actually cut better if I don't try to just jam it through and like pull, but if I actually do 2 or 3 nice light incisions, I'll actually get a better, cleaner cut. So I'm just gonna kind of press lightly. And then again, and then maybe one last time. Yeah, so that way I get a nice, you can see, I get a nice clean cut there. It's not gonna, kind of be ripped and tear. If I try shoving it through and pull that way, it's gonna definitely start to fray some of the edges, and it'll get kind of woggly and other things. So try to do things as precise as you can, keeping in mind kind of our habits of mind. So again, just nice and light. And I'm all the way through. So just, 2 light passes was plenty to go ahead and cut through that cardboard. And so now I've got this incision that kind of goes all the way through. So then I'm going to use this as my viewing screen. Now, if this was clear, again, you know, I might have to use something else. So I could use something like tracing paper. I could use just regular white paper from the, you know, like from, you know, what you would use for like your inkjet printer. You know, just, you may have to just be creative, whatever you can find, but something that's going to allow you to be able to see through it, but also, you know, form that image. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this all the way open. There we go. So now we've got a nice big thick piece. And again, if I hold it up, like I can't see all the way through it. I can see outlines and shapes, but we'll try it and see if it's going to be enough to kind of keep our, you know, form our image. So what we need is basically a strip that's going to be the same width as our box. And it's going to need to be, you know, the same or a little bit further so that it, you know, it goes through. But you notice, like when I put it there though, I can actually see through it pretty well. So I might see what happens if we do the double coat. I don't know, we're just gonna have to try it. And if it doesn't work, we can use paper. So let's go ahead and go there. And I'm gonna make it just a little bit narrower than what the actual opening is, just so it'll be a little easier to get through there. And I don't want it to pucker because then it's gonna warp the kind of edge. And it's actually probably easier to cut once I get it started, if I just slide, as opposed to trying to cut. There we go. So here's my initial screen. So I'm just going to kind of hold that up. If I lift up on this, that'll help it kind of feed through there. Because we want to try to keep it straight. The less wrinkling we have, the better. And then I just want it to come out through this bottom part here, so I'll pull enough slack through there and then kind of get that to come through that. So basically what we want is for that screen to go directly through, you know, the front and the back of the box. There we go. So that's the basic idea there. Now, there's probably going to be quite a bit of light that's going to be leaking through here and through here. So we'll eventually tape it down and get that kind of in place. So far we've got a viewing screen. Now, then the next thing that we're going to need is a way to let in the light, right? So what we're going to do is going to put just a pinhole. So the name of it's a pinhole camera, right? And it literally is talking about a hole that's the size of a pin, right? So I'm going to take a quick look. I think I've got a push pin around here somewhere. There we go. So here's just a regular old push pin. So where I put this kind of matters. Like, obviously I'd like it to be as centered as possible. Now, cereal boxes can be a little bit tricky because they're really two pieces of cardboard that are like folded over each other, right? So there might not be a huge amount of overlap in there. So what I'm a little bit concerned is one of two things will happen. If I put the pinhole in, you know, straight through there, that, you know, as it goes through here, that it might be right at the edge of the overlap, or that it's going to, you know, there's going to be two layers and they're going to block each other. But we're just going to put one in there, and then we can always open it up and we'll look at kind of some other options once we get it in there. So here's about my center point. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to go right there. Put that pinhole through there. And then I'm just going to kind of wiggle it around a little bit. That'll also just kind of open up that hole a little bit bigger, just to let a little bit more light in. So there's a couple of things working here. The smaller the hole, the sharper it's going to be. The more it can constrict the light rays and, you know, block some of those extraneous rays that would cause blur. So the sharper the image will be, but it'll be dimmer, right? So there's kind of a balance we'll have to find. If it's looking so dim inside your pinhole camera and you can't see anything, well, then it may be that we need to go ahead and open that up a little bit and make it an even larger hole. So there's my pinhole. And, you know, and then we've got the viewing screen inside of there. So what we'll need to do is then take a look and see, well, can I see anything inside of there? So let's take a quick look outside. So before we go outside and do some initial testing just to see what we can, what we're able to see through the camera, let's go ahead and seal up a couple of the light leaks. So I'm just using black tape, but if you needed to, you could also use blue tape, you could use duct tape, you know, but something that's going to block the light. If you don't have anything that's going to be like a little bit opaque, you might want to use something like tinfoil because that will also block the light. So I'm just going to put a couple pieces on here really quick. That's probably still going to be leaking light there, but right now we're just kind of making sure that it's just doing some testing. Now, I know for sure that I'm probably getting some leaking of light through these corners, so I'm just going to go ahead and start by taping up the corner. And I can just see like there's little bits and pieces of cardboard that are kind of blocking that part, so I'm just going to kind of open that up a little bit more just to help let some light through there. All right, so let's go test the camera and see if it's letting in some image. So here's our camera, our initial test, and I'm just gonna go ahead and slide this inside the camera for us. So we did some initial testing. We can see the image in there, although, you know, it's going to be a little bit blurry. And right now we're getting a little bit of like a hot spot in the middle. So I'm going to see if we can do one of two things. I'm going to go ahead and double up the plastic just to see if that maybe helps distribute the, you know, the light a little bit more evenly. Maybe we'll minimize some of that hot spot. And then we might also want to open up the hole just a little bit more as well. So I'm just going to like peel this tape off really quick. I'd like to be able to reuse it, so I'm going to try to be careful. Sounds like maybe this corner is hanging up just a little bit. So I just pulled a little bit more through, and I'm just going to put it back through. So I know I'm not going to want to use more than the 2 layers, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut off this little bit of extra. I just kind of want it to be as taut as possible. There we go. So now we've got ourselves double thickness. Hopefully that'll make the image a little more clear. So let's go take a quick look. So it seems to be looking a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and try to open up that hole a little bit more. So, you know, it's going to make it a little bit less sharp, but it will also make it, you know, allow it to have some more light coming in through there. Now, you can always open up the hole a little bit further. Now that's going to be a lot bigger, but it's going to let in more light. So it's going to be kind of a trade-off. There's going to be either more light coming through, which will be, you know, allow us to see it, especially since we're just doing it with our eyes, not putting a piece of photographic paper in there. But it will be blurrier. Right, so let's go take a look outside and see what we can see inside of our camera now. And what we want to be able to do is then just, you know, start to lift it up and to look through. And so, you know, it may take a little bit of getting used to it. It's upside down and backwards, but I can see, you know, there are some palm trees, you know, there's the awning, you know, here's the trailer. Some more palm trees over there, right? So just so you can see what we're actually looking at. So, you know, there's some trees and some bushes, right? There's the trailer. So, you know, we're definitely able to form that image inside of there. But like I said, it's going to be a little bit blurry, but we can definitely make that out and see that image. So that's our pinhole camera. It really is a very simple device. You know, it's literally a dark box with a viewing screen and a hole to let light in.